So, okay, so you got the wolves, and it's sort of like...
Good, and so this is great so far. It sounds like the argument is building from lobsters to, and this is how I'm interpreting it, from lobsters to a strong argument for essentially why Jungian archetypes actually
Absolutely.
exist as things, which is
yes. Well, this is
very important.
This is,
however, but I think what's also important is to help viewers understand how we get from lobsters and dominance hierarchies to
no problem.
Truth.
Okay, so they're not things. They're constituent elements of reality. That's not the same thing. Okay, and a constituent element of reality is in some sense, depends on the thing, but its longevity is sufficient to make it more than merely a thing. Things are kind of temporary. I mean, protons aren't, but you know, things are temporary. Dominance hierarchies, those are not temporary. Those are eternal. They're eternal as far as we're concerned. You know, okay, so you got the wolf, and then you think, well, what kind of wolf gets to the top? And you might think the toughest wolf. That's sort of like the caveman theory, you know. But it's unlikely that it's the toughest wolf. It's a wolf that's well adapted across multiple dimensions. But the wolf that's successful in the dominance hierarchy you could think of as the archetypal wolf. Right, now what kind of wolf is that? Well, I don't know enough about wolves to know, but I do know some things about dogs. I mean, a dog is cooperative as well as competitive, and it's pretty sophisticated at picking up the cues that indicate the nature of social relationships. Like it can do that in a human society. The dog doesn't know the rules, but the dog has the morality of a dominant system already built into it. So it's a predicate of its biological existence. Okay, so we'll switch to chimps, because you can actually talk a little bit more, with a little bit more concrete knowledge about which chimps win. So there's a lot from Frans de Waal. Which chimp stays on top? Because male chimps make a pretty vicious hierarchy, right? And it's almost always a male on top. It's not so clear with bonobos, or bonobos, I never know how to say that. But the chimp that stays on top, brutal chimps can rule for a while. But because they're brutal, they're not very good at making coalitions. And even if you're brutal and strong, two guys that are half as brutal as you and 3/4 as strong will take you down. And that's what the chimps do. So then you might say, well, in order to be optimally situated for maximum reproductive potential, not only do you want to climb the hierarchy, you want to climb it without being hurt too much, you don't want to blow the strats out of your group, and you want to stay there as long as possible. Okay, so that's a niche. Think about that. That's a niche. It's complicated because the niche involves success in climbing, and then it involves success in maintaining an uppermost position. Okay, so, and that for chimps, that requires not only the capacity to be aggressive, but also the capacity to be cooperative and empathic. So one of the things de Waal discovered, for example, is that the chimp who stays on top, first of all, can make coalitions. So there's a lot of reciprocal grooming and so on. So he can make friends, even though he's kind of, you know, he's tough. But he also pays a lot of attention to the females and the infants in the troop. So whatever constitutes sovereignty, let's say, from a chimp perspective, is a lot more complex than mere power. Okay, so fine, so that's chimps. Now, we're chimps, so you already got the origin of human ethics to some degree in that. It's like, get to the top, but don't be too much of a prick when you're there, so to speak, right? You have to rule while making allowances for those, and make allowances for the fact that those you rule over have value. Now that's an interesting thing, because now what you've done is if you've introduced not the idea, but the fact that even a defeated other is a valuable part of the group. Okay, now that's starting to get, morality there is starting to get fairly deep, because that's kind of like, well, the outcast still has value.